Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to England once again, and we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that was very kindly sent to me by my good friend Adam over at Mersey Beers. So a massive thank you to him for making this review possible. Do make sure you check out the link to his channel in the video description below. He's just kind of getting things up and running at the moment, having had his internet upgraded. But he's going to be doing a lot of different beer-themed live streams and stuff like this over the next little while. And it's going to be really interesting to see how his channel grows, because he's got some really nice ideas. He's a very knowledgeable guy, very nice guy as well. And yeah, I look forward to seeing how his channel grows, and hopefully I can kind of contribute to that a little bit as well. So like I say, do show Adam some love and check out the link to his channel in the video description below. Top guy sent me about 18 or so different English beers to review for you guys here on the channel. So I really hope that you enjoy this kind of English mini-series that you're going to be seeing over the next little while. For this review then, we are going to return to Manchester, and we're going to go back to a brewery that I have reviewed things from before, although it has been a considerable amount of time since I did a dedicated review to these guys. So for this one then, we are going to return to Track Brewing Company for I think about the 6th time, but this is only my 3rd dedicated review that I've done from them, and this particular one is one of their kind of core range flagship type beers, however you want to call it. So it's called the Sonoma. It comes in at 3.8% ABV, and it is a pale ale. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. As I say, this is one of their flagship beers. The ones that I've had from these guys before, I think one was called the Zincs and the other one was called Coming in the Sun or something like that. And then beyond that, I've had 2 collaborations that they did with Wylam, and I think one that they did with Cloudwater as well actually. So like I said, only my 3rd dedicated review to these guys, and this is the first one that I've done from their kind of regular brews actually. But Adam says this is a very, very nice beer. The other ones that he sent me have all been really quite interesting beers so far. So hopefully this is one that kind of carries on in the same vein as that. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one, but let's see how we go. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Track Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly these days, especially so since Adam sent me this box. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Track Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you before, Track Brewing are based in Manchester, Piccadilly to be specific, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Sam Dyson. So Sam had studied maths and economics at university, and he also homebrewed when he was studying because it was a source of cheap beer. But over time he grew very fond of the science behind brewing and the creativity it allowed him to have, while also having like a really kind of central process. So after studying, he took a trip on his bike, travelling across 5 different continents and 25 countries. But the first part of this trip was to go across America, and it was there that he started to visit a lot of different tap rooms, both on the west coast and on the east coast, and a lot of places in between. And when he returned to England, he went to London to work in the craft beer industry down there to get a little bit of experience, and then he returned to Manchester. So when he got back to Manchester, he rented out an arch on Sheffield Street, very close to Piccadilly Station, the main station in Manchester. And so in that area there's a lot of different food producers and breweries and things, so it's really the kind of ideal place to kick a business like this off. But in the early days he was joined by Matt Dutton and also Will Harris, and since then, since these 3 guys have kind of come together, this brewery have become really highly decorated and, you know, very well respected when it comes to English craft beer. Mainly these guys are doing you know, IPAs and pale ales and stuff like this, but they do have a variety of other styles in there as well. I would like to try a few of their different styles the next time I make it to Manchester. I don't know when that will be, But I would like to go and do some out and about filming at like Manchester Track and Marble and stuff like this. There's a lot of really good breweries in Manchester these days. But these days, Track Brewing Company have their tap room, which is just a few streets away from the brewery, and as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 250 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, a very well respected brewery. The English guys that are reviewing different beers on YouTube, you know, they tell me that they really like the beers. I've had two, as I say, from these guys before, and a few different collaborations, but this is my first one from their core range and my first dedicated review to these guys in probably like 2.5, 3 years, something like this. So definitely nice to return to this brewery, and again, a huge thank you to Adam for making this review possible. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Track Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. They do have a podcast on there where it goes really in depth about all the different kind of aspects of the brewery and things, especially Sam's bike trip that he took across all the different continents, which is really quite interesting. I actually had a bit of a listen to a little bit of that, but yeah, you can check out the Facebook and Instagram as well to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. This one is quite distinctive. I mean, I've seen this beer in you know, various different English web shops and things like that, but this is the first time I think I've actually seen it in the can. Even in places like Valhalla's Goat and stuff like that in Glasgow, I don't think I've ever seen, you know, physically seen this beer. But yeah, like I say, the Sonoma Pale Ale, 3.8% ABV this one. The hops in this one are Mosaic, Citra and Centennial, which we know quite well. Mosaic, lovely kind of tangerine orange. Citra, you know, kind of mangoes, a little bit of tropical fruit complexity, and Centennial is quite a nice kind of limey, sorry, not limey, lemony kind of sherbety kind of hop if you like. And then the malt base is extra pale, Cara Gold and wheat malts, and it uses a Lallemand yeast. I think it's Lallemand number 3 in this one. But yeah, really nicely presented beer this one, 440ml can. Very kind of quirky artwork there. You can see, I'm not sure how well that's going to show up. It seems to be showing up okay. There you can see the Track Brewing Company symbol actually, which looks very, very nice. So yeah, Sonoma Pale Ale, 3.8% ABV. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the taste, and then I'm very, very curious about this beer. You know, I've not reviewed too many pale ales for you here on the channel, and in honesty, you don't really get that many of them in Sweden, come to think of it. I was thinking about this. You know, it's one of the things, if I was at home in Scotland, when you compare the prices of these beers, you know, it's usually better value actually to go for the IPA rather than the Pale Ale, I've found. But in Sweden, over here, you really don't get all that many different pale ales, to be quite honest with you. You can in the supermarkets, the folk ales and things like that, because anything under 3.5% can be sold in the supermarkets as a folk ale. Anything above that is a stark ale, and that has to be sold in Systembolaget. There are similar things in Norway and Finland, it's just different percentages. I think in Norway it might be 4% and in Finland it might be 5, above 5 that they have to be sold in the that they have to be sold in the monopolies and stuff. So yeah, it just seems to be most breweries over here don't really brew pale ales. I think they tend to go for more of the kind of full IPA, to be honest with you. So that's an interesting point to make about this one. I really have not reviewed all that many pale ales, but at 3.8%, you know, this one, hopefully this turns out to be quite a nice, interesting and sessionable beer. But as you can see with this one, it's poured kind of as you would expect for a modern pale ale, if you like. You can see this one has a solid finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one. I don't think this is a creamy head, I do think it is a perfect white head. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head. The head is retaining on this one quite well. That's probably due to the wheat malt that is inside this beer. If we shine the light through it, it's a lovely kind of bright yellow, and you can see there is a good degree of haze to this one, but it's certainly not as kind of soupy and gloopy as you're going to get from some beers. But as I've told you before, you know, when you go up the alcohol scale with these New England type beers, you know, you get more wheat and more oats in the malt base, so you know, gradually you get more haze to them. But it looks absolutely lovely, I have to say. It looks very, very nice, kind of what you would expect for a New England pale ale, which I guess is what we really, the style that we really should attribute to this beer. But yeah, nice looking beer, this one. In terms of its colour, lovely bright yellow. I would compare this to like a kind of mango juice. I always compare these New England type beers to the different fruit juices because that's really just what they remind me of. But yeah, let's have a look at this one then. Let's have a look at the aroma and see how we go. That actually smells very, very nice, I have to say. So the malty side of the beer comes across really nicely. You can definitely smell that wheaty base to the beer. It's got a nice bit of a kind of bread crusty thing that sits there in the middle of the nose as well. So yeah, lovely. There's a wee bit of bitiness to the wheat. There's a nice little bit of a kind of bread crusty kind of thing under there too. You've got some nice, how would you say, a little bit of a sweet caramel to this one, which will be the, I think it was was it Cara Gold that I had, or was it Cara Pills? I forget. But yeah, it's got a little bit of a kind of one of the caramels in this one, so you do get a bit of sweet caramel to the beer. There's a nice little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing as well. But yeah, I really like how the aroma of this one, how it goes together. The malt base comes across really nicely. If you've watched the channel before, you will know that I'm a sucker for a good malt base. I guess it must just be the Scottish sweet tooth, if you like. But yeah, the aroma coming out of this one is very nice. Lovely, as I say, smooth white bready note in there. You do get a bit of bitiness from the wheat, a little bit of a more kind of bread crusty quality. Definitely a wee bit of an oaty character coming out of this one as well, almost. Does it actually have oats in it? Am I remembering right? No, it does have oats, yeah. That would make sense. You do get a wee bit of that oaty kind of creaminess out of this one, and that makes sense from the aroma. But yeah, there's a wee bit of a kind of sweet caramel in the middle of the nose and a little bit of a biscuity quality as well. But I mean, overall the aroma is very nice on the malty side of things. So on the hops then, I would say, yeah, on the hoppy side of things, you do get a wee touch of earthiness out of this one, but the green side of the hops come across very nicely. It's got a good little bit of floral character to it. I wouldn't say this one is spicy, I would say that it's more kind of aromatic rather than anything. And in fairness, the aromaticity does have a little bit of smoothness to it. You've got a nice bit of a lighter kind of grassy quality in there as well. And yeah, it suits the malt base as well. It's got a nice smoothness to it. That suits the kind of vibe that you have out of the malt base on this one. On the fruity side of things, on the hoppy side of it, we should say, it is kind of what you would expect. So for me, you do get the nice kind of smooth mangoes out of this one. The mango notes actually come across as really lovely and moist and juicy. You have got a wee bit of a, how would we say, you do get a wee bit of an orangey character out of this one, but I think the mosaic almost kind of sits back a little bit. The mosaic would also explain a little bit of the earthiness. You do get that wee touch of earthiness out of the aroma in this one. But yeah, there's a wee touch of an oily kind of orangey character to this one from the mosaic, and there's also a little bit of a lemony kind of zesty thing in there. I think the Citra in this one is giving you a kind of softer tropical fruit. I don't find them, I mean, it's got a bit of mango, but you're also getting a little bit of a kind of, I think to me this one comes across as quite apricot-y, to be honest with you. This beer really reminds me of those little Munch Bunch yogurts that my mum used to put in my lunchbox when I was wee. You know, it reminds me of the apricot one in a lot of ways. But you do get, as I say, a wee bit of orange in this one. I think the mosaic is a bit less pronounced than the Citra, and the Centennial, I think, almost feels like it sits back a little bit as well, but you do get a little bit of that lemony, zesty sort of thing. But that can all be different in the flavour, as we've learned over 2,400 beer reviews. But yeah, the aroma of this one, I have to say, is very nice. If you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, like that, I mean, you definitely get a wee bit more of the, you definitely get a little bit more of the, you definitely get a little bit more of that kind of zesty quality from the Centennial, which I really like. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck in, but we're going to have a taste of this beer and see how we get on. So this one is the Sonoma, a 3.8% New England style pale ale from Track Brewing Company in Piccadilly in Manchester. Again, a huge thank you to Adam from Mersey Beers for making this review possible. Make sure you check out his channel, but let's get stuck into this beer. Slàinte, skål. yeah, that's really nice. It strikes me as, you know, very, very sessionable. It actually reminds me quite a bit of the Neblina from that I had from Raymond Gorge Brewery over here in Skåne. It really is quite like that. As I say, pale ales for me, I do wonder where the line is between a pale ale and a session IPA. I really wonder about that. I mean, the definition and the style, as far as I was aware, is all to do with the malt to hop ratio. So, I mean, is the session IPA just a lower alcohol thing with the IPA malt to hop ratio? I would assume that would be what it is. But yeah, I mean, if I was kind of blind tasting this one, I probably would guess that this was a session IPA rather than a pale ale, to be honest with you. But again, as I say, the hypocrisy in arguing that is that I don't really know where the border between these two styles actually is. But I mean, if we just regard this as a kind of pale ale IPA sort of thing, session IPA, whatever it is, the main message to take away is that it's really nice. And you know, the beers that I've had from track before, I have been impressed with. I think the ones that I remember, like Coming Into the Sun, or whatever the name of it was, the very first one that I bought in the tap room. I have been to their tap room, or was it? I think it actually was the brewery that we were in. They used to open up the brewery on the Fridays and Saturdays to have the thing in there, but now they've got a tap room, of course. But yeah, I actually bought one of their cans from the brewery to review, and that was the very first track review that I did. And this one, it just seems a little bit more refined than they were back at that time. But as I say, they're a very highly regarded Manchester brewery. So, and to be highly regarded in Manchester, you have to be good. You do have to be good. But yeah, this one for me is really nice. Look at that, lovely pour. But yeah, solid beer, this one. Let's try and break down the flavour of this then and just see how we go. So straight away with this beer, you can feel there is a nice little bit of a kind of pale malty, almost crisp element to the malt base here. And to be honest, that's something that I would associate with a pale ale over an IPA. I do always expect a pale ale just to be a little bit crisp and a little bit more bitey, if that makes sense. So yeah, you can feel the pale malty notes coming out of this one. If you go towards the back third of your palate, you can feel the slightly more thick wheaty character to the beer, and it does have a wee bit of bitiness to it as well. In fairness, if you go to the very back of the tongue, you will get a little bit of a kind of wheaty bitiness coming out of this one. So yeah, back third of your palate is just a little bit thicker, but then as you move into the middle third of your palate, you can feel the mouthfeel just kind of goes, the sort of thickness of the malt base just goes down a little bit. You get that nice little bit of a kind of pale malt. The pale malty crispness, I think, really comes out in the middle third of your tongue. But if you move towards the front half of that middle third of your tongue, there's a little bit of a there is a little bit of a kind of creamy, how would we say, there is a little bit of a kind of creamy oatiness to the beer as well. The whatever the caramel it was that they have in this one, it's not as obvious in the flavour, I don't think. I mean, in the aroma, it was pretty obvious, but I think in the actual flavour, it comes across as a little bit smooth. And in fairness, the further you go into the aftertaste with it, you will get a little bit of a slightly brown sugary note in the middle of the palate, but the sort of caramelly notes or whatever and biscuity notes, they're not quite as obvious as you would think. It actually comes across as a little bit more like a kind of butter candy type thing, like a kind of Werther's Original. So it's a little bit like that in the middle of the palate. So yeah, middle third of your palate, like I say, a bit of a kind of pale malty base, a little bit more kind of oaty and creamy on the front half of that middle third of your palate. Then on top of that, you get a kind of oily sort of butter candy type flavour coming out of this one. That kind of Werther's Original type quality, like I was saying, but the malt base really suits everything else that's going on in this one. As I say, pale ale, I find it a little bit more crisp and bitey compared to a regular IPA. But that's what I would expect from the style. So yeah, the malt base on this one I think is really nicely done, and that sort of more crisp, bitey sort of aspect to the malt base gives you that sessionability that you would expect to something like this. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate you do get a little bit of that earthiness, which is the mosaic. As you come further forward along the sides of the palate, the grassiness, you do get a bit of grassiness around the front curve of the tongue, but you can feel there is a little bit of a floral aromaticity coming out along the sides of the tongue on this one, which is really quite nice. In terms of the you know, dankness and stuff like this one, it does develop a wee touch of an almost spicy character on the kind of towards the front of the tongue. But yeah, I think there is a wee bit of spiciness there that builds the further you go into the aftertaste, but it's quite minimal. I would wonder, maybe they've used Columbus as a bittering hop in this one. I don't know, maybe the other hops are being used as dry hops. Not quite sure about that, but yeah, it's difficult to decide. I mean, all three of the hops that are in this, they are high alpha acid. You know, Citra's usually about 14, Mosaic's about 14. I think Centennial's 11 or 12 normally. But yeah, they're all capable of giving you a little bit of that kind of floral, spicy character. But yeah, maybe there could be a little bit of Columbus as the bittering hop in this one. I'm not sure. But yeah, the floral qualities you get out of this on the side of the palate are very nice. But let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. So as I always say to you, on the front third of your tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. And this one, I think, has some really interesting things going on. So yeah, it's actually lovely and juicy and balanced, to be honest with you. It really leans towards the kind of softer side of things for all three of the hops that are in it. So yeah, if you go towards the very back of that front third of your palate, you'll get, there is a wee touch of a passion fruit there. You can get just a little hint of that slightly darker, more pungent fruity flavour that you'd expect, but very quickly as you move further forward from that, it becomes mango-like. You do get some of those apricot-y flavours that I was picking up from the aroma, and you do get a lovely kind of soft apricot-y note to this one. Maybe it could be a little bit papaya-like or something like that, but I find it really apricot-y. It's got that lovely soft apricot quality to it. Then as you move a little bit further forward into the front half of that front third of your tongue, you do pick up the kind of mosaic orangey type quality to this one. You do get that slightly more oily tangerine orange thing from the mosaic coming out of the beer. But yeah, it's the fruity notes on this one are definitely very soft and really smooth. If you just go to almost the very front edge of your tongue, you do get a little bit of that kind of slightly lemony, almost lemony sherbety type note from the Centennial in this one. But again, the Centennial comes across in a really quite soft manner actually, and that suits the rest of this beer. It really does suit the paleo, because you do have a bit of crispness to the malt base in this one, like I said. But the more you kind of go into the aftertaste with this beer, the further you go into the aftertaste, you do get a real smoothness out of this one. So yeah, this beer I think is really nice. I'd be curious to try this one on tap and just see how that type of conditioning affects this one. But I find this beer, it starts off quite crisp, I think, and then it really just kind of smoothens out. But yeah, I can see why this paleo has become, you know, really quite highly regarded. So yeah, thank you to Adam again for sending this one to me. I think this was a really nice beer to review. Paleo's not so common over here in Scandinavia in my experience. Usually it's the IPAs and stuff, but maybe that's due to the taxes and stuff that you have on the alcohol here. It just makes more sense to brew the IPAs and stuff. But yeah, this one really is very, very nice. So thumbs up to Track Brewing for this. Let's focus on that note on the mouthfeel then. Let's focus on the mouthfeel of this beer a little bit. So, yeah, mouthfeel wise, what would we say about this beer? I think it has to be top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. I would say that overall the mouthfeel has a balance between smoothness and it's got a slight level of creaminess to it as well. But yeah, you do get a bit of that crispness you'd expect from a paleo, but I think the smoothness out of this beer really builds the further you go into the aftertaste. In terms of the In terms of the kind of hoppy bitterness and stuff like this, I think this is probably about 20-ish IBUs, 25 at most I would think, which is fairly kind of standard for the New England beers, to be honest with you. Yeah, about 20, I think about 20, 25 IBUs for this beer. The malt base, like I say, very very kind of smooth. There is a bit of crispness in the beginning, but it really smoothens out and you get a bit more kind of sweetness out of it the further you go into the aftertaste. The fruity side of the beer is quite nice and juicy, I have to say. It does have a bit of wetness to it, the beer overall, but yeah, this one's a really nice, just drinkable beer actually. So yeah, I can see why Adam thought I should have a go at this one, because that's a very nice pale ale, I have to say. You know, if you want something a bit more sessionable than some of the big beasts that you're going to get from Track, Cloudwater, Wylam, Dea, you know, all of these kind of guys, then this is a very good option, I have to say. So yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of round off the review in this one. Just a very nicely done pale ale. And a big thank you again to Adam for making this review possible. So yeah, I guess I have to say after this one I probably need to explore the pale ales a little bit more, but yeah, we don't have so many opportunities to do that here in Sweden. So do let me know some of your pale ale recommendations in the comment section below. It'd be interesting to hear those, but yeah, I think this one was very nicely done. This was the Sonoma Pale Ale coming in at 3.8% ABV from Track Brewing Company in Piccadilly in Manchester. A really nicely done beer, and this is the sort of ideal beer festival beer, to be honest with you. It kind of reminds me in a way of A Moment of Clarity from Beerbibliothek in Gothenburg as well. That's a really nice one. So yeah, I would recommend that you try that. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Track Brewing Company. And yeah, it will be nice to return to these guys again at some point fairly soon. Thank you again to Adam. Make sure you check out his channel, check out my social media, check out Track Brewing Company, and we will hopefully be able to do some more reviews from these guys at some point very soon. Slange, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out Track Brewing Company and check out my friend Adam over at Mersey Beers. Skål.